Have you ever wondered if the Great Pyramid of Giza was just the beginning? What if there were other pyramids, older, stranger, and far more mysterious, hidden across the ancient world? From deserts swallowed by time to jungles veiling stone giants, 6 forgotten pyramids defy everything we thought we knew. And the final one may rewrite the origin of pyramid building forever. Stay with us till the end. But before we dive in, let me know if you're enjoying this kind of long, gentle history. Feel free to tap that like button and subscribe, only if you truly love what I'm doing here. And in the comments, share where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your city. I always love seeing our little bedtime crew gathering from every corner of the world. Now lower your lights. Maybe let a soft fan hum in the background and settle in. Let's ease into tonight's quiet journey together. Chapter 1. The Nubian Echo, Sudan's Forgotten Pyramid Kingdom. Beneath the searing sun of Sudan, in a stretch of desert few modern travelers dare to cross, lie the remains of a forgotten empire. Dotting the landscape like scattered teeth of ancient giants, over 200 pyramids rise from the black sands of Nubia, their sharp angles cut into the horizon, smaller than their Egyptian cousins but more numerous, more concentrated, and far more mysterious. These are the pyramids of the Kingdom of Kush, once Egypt's rival, sometimes its ruler, and always its shadow. But while Egypt's Giza pyramids have become symbols of eternal grandeur, the Nubian pyramids have been buried by wind, time, and historical neglect. Their stories wait beneath layers of dust, carved into sandstone blocks and broken burial chambers. The tale of Kush begins not in luxury but in exile, not in gold but in grit. It is a chapter of history most never knew existed, and Egypt would rather you never heard. Long before Cairo became the center of Nile civilization, the people of Kush thrived further south along the riverbanks. Their lands were rich in gold, iron, and obsidian, materials that made them both desirable and dangerous. For centuries, Egypt viewed Nubia as both a threat and a resource. At times, they launched military campaigns to subjugate it. At others, they traded and intermarried. But Kush did not simply endure. It evolved. When Egypt fell into disarray around 1070 BCE, a power vacuum stretched across the Nile. Into that vacuum rose the 25th dynasty, rulers from Kush who would march northward and seize the pharaonic throne. From the south came dark-skinned kings wrapped in leopard skins and crowned with divine titles. They were the Black Pharaohs, and when they returned to their homeland, they brought Egyptian traditions with them, but transformed them into something entirely new. The most visible legacy of this cultural fusion lies in the deserts around Napata and Meroë, ancient capitals of the Kushite kingdom. Here, dozens upon dozens of pyramids rise in eerie silence. But unlike Egypt's 3 great pyramids at Giza, these structures are steep, slender, and clustered tightly together, as if space was more sacred than scale. Many are less than 30 meters tall. Some stand alone. Others form tightly packed necropolises. Their orientation and dimensions suggest ritual precision, but not the same geometric focus seen in Egyptian designs. Beneath each one lies a tomb carved into the bedrock, often accessed by a descending stairway and sealed with heavy stone. Inside are painted walls, inscribed curses, and shattered remains, looted over centuries by thieves and empires alike. But even in ruin, these tombs whisper of kings who saw themselves as divine. The Kushites did not merely imitate Egyptian burial practices, they reimagined them. Instead of grand causeways or massive statues, their pyramid fields emphasized scale through repetition. The clustering of pyramids created a surreal skyline of jagged peaks, casting long shadows over the sand. Many of the pyramid chambers contain objects never found in Egyptian tombs: iron weapons, Nubian pottery, and inscriptions written in the long-lost Meroitic script. This undeciphered language still frustrates archaeologists today. Without translation, the voices of Meroë remain locked behind stone and silence. Yet, even without their words, the intent is clear. These pyramids were not built as imitations, but as declarations. The Kushite elite saw themselves not as followers of Egypt, but as its equals, or perhaps its spiritual successors. But time, as always, is an enemy to forgotten greatness. The sands of Sudan are more than metaphorical. They are actively erasing what remains. For centuries, European explorers bypassed these sites entirely, convinced that all roads to pyramid wisdom ended at Giza. When the pyramids of Meroë were rediscovered in the 19th century, they were mistaken for minor Egyptian outposts. Early excavators used dynamite to open tombs, destroying priceless carvings and structure. Others stole artifacts from museums, further severing the monuments from their cultural roots. By the time modern archaeology caught up, the damage was already done. What remained were fractured stones, broken history, and endless questions. Who were the buried kings and queens? What did they believe? And why did their pyramid tradition fade when Egypt's endured? The answer may lie in politics as much as religion. Egypt, having regained independence from Kushite rule, sought to erase the legacy of its southern conquerors. Temples once attributed to Kushite kings were reinscribed. Statues were defaced. Even papyrus records omitted their reigns. The Black Pharaohs became shadows in their own story. And with the decline of the Kushite kingdom around 350 CE, the memory of their monuments faded even in local oral traditions. Desert tribes passed the sites with caution, believing them haunted or cursed. Centuries later, foreign missionaries and colonial officials labeled them pagan relics and discouraged their preservation. The pyramids became forgotten not because they failed to impress, but because history was rewritten to exclude them. Yet the desert has its own stubborn memory. In recent years, archaeological missions have returned to the region with new tools, satellite imaging, 3D modeling, and radiocarbon dating. What they've found beneath the sand is astonishing. Entire necropolises, once thought fully mapped, revealed new pyramid foundations beneath the dunes. In some tombs, walls still bear the colorful frescoes of winged gods, cattle offerings, and solar discs, symbols that blend Egyptian motifs with distinctly Nubian worldviews. Female rulers, or candates, appear frequently in these tombs, suggesting a more egalitarian power structure than Egypt's. One queen, Amanishakheto, left behind treasures so refined that early looters mistook her for a lost Egyptian monarch. Her pyramid still stands, scarred by time but defiant. But beyond these tombs lies a more profound mystery. Why did the Kushites cling to pyramid building so much longer than Egypt? By the time Egypt's new kingdom ended pyramid construction in favor of hidden rock-cut tombs, the Kushites were just beginning their golden age of monument building. Perhaps the pyramid, to them, was not merely a tomb, but a spiritual antenna, a link between this world and the next. Some scholars suggest that the narrow design of Nubian pyramids was meant to point more directly at the sun. Others see in their crowded formations a reflection of Nubian cosmology, a belief that the dead lived together in the afterlife as they did in life. Whatever the reason, the persistence of this tradition speaks to a civilization deeply rooted in its own identity, even as it borrowed from others. Today, visitors who make the journey to Meroë are greeted by silence and wind. There are no crowds, no tour buses, no polished brochures. The pyramids rise alone, broken and majestic, under a vast, uncaring sky. At sunrise, their shadows stretch like ancient fingers across the sand. Some are sheared at the top, missing their capstones. Others lean slightly, as if tired from centuries of watching the world forget. And yet they endure. Their stone blocks, cut by hands long turned to dust, still hold firm. Their carvings still catch the light. They do not ask to be remembered. They simply wait. And in that waiting, something stirs. Researchers have begun decoding patterns in the layout of the pyramid fields, suggesting alignments not just with cardinal directions, but with specific stars and constellations. Was there a celestial code guiding their placement? Were the Kushites mapping heaven in stone, pyramid by pyramid? The answers remain elusive, but tantalizing. Every rediscovered fragment, every freshly unearthed stairway, peels back another layer of mystery. The more we learn, the more we realize how little we truly know. Even more compelling is the idea that these pyramids might represent an unbroken spiritual lineage. Oral traditions among local tribes speak of ancestors who came from the stars, who built mountains to honor the gods, who buried their dead in places of power. Could the Meroë pyramids be the last visible traces of an even older tradition, one predating Egypt entirely? The thought is both exhilarating and unsettling. For if these structures did not originate from Egyptian influence, but rather reflect an older Pan-African sacred geometry, then everything we thought we knew about pyramid building must be revised. Giza might not be the origin. It might be the echo. In this dry and unforgiving land, the Nubian pyramids remain guardians of a forgotten age. Their builders are gone. Their language is unreadable. Their kingdom lies buried beneath layers of conquest, colonization, and neglect. But their message is not lost. It waits to be heard again, not through textbooks or timelines, but through story. A story told in stone, shadow, and sand. A story that begins not in Egypt, but in the heart of Kush. And in that story, we find a truth far older than Giza, that pyramids are not merely monuments of the dead, but markers of a legacy determined to rise, again and again, from the dust. Chapter 2. The Pyramid of Hellinikon, Greece's Lost Megalith. In a land celebrated for marble temples, sculpted gods, and rational philosophy, the idea of a pyramid seems out of place. Greece is the cradle of democracy, not of pharaohs. Yet nestled quietly in the plains of Argolis, in the Peloponnese region, stands a structure that defies expectations. The Pyramid of Hellinikon, weathered and overlooked, challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient Greek architecture. Unlike the sleek columns of Athens or the fortified walls of Mycenae, this structure is blocky, angular, and unmistakably pyramid-shaped. Its purpose unclear, its origin contested. Some say it's merely a tower. Others insist it predates the Great Pyramid of Giza. The deeper one digs, the more the story blurs. But beneath the worn stones lies a possibility too controversial for many to accept, that before Greece became the beacon of classical civilization, it was home to something much older and possibly much stranger. The Pyramid of Hellinikon is not grand by Egyptian standards. It stands only a few meters tall and covers a relatively small footprint. Constructed of limestone blocks arranged in horizontal courses, its walls slope inward in a style reminiscent of step pyramids. At first glance, it appears modest, even primitive, but a closer inspection reveals meticulous masonry. Blocks carefully fitted without mortar, their edges smooth despite the centuries. The entrance faces east, in line with solar traditions found across ancient cultures. Inside, a narrow corridor leads to a central chamber, now empty and open to the elements. No inscriptions survive, no artifacts remain. The building is silent, a stone shell holding questions no one has been able to answer. Its design does not match any known Greek architectural tradition. That in itself is a mystery. The earliest known reference to this pyramid comes from ancient texts that speak of fortified structures in the region. Some historians believe the pyramid was built for military observation, a lookout tower in a landscape once racked by tribal wars. But this theory raises a contradiction. Why build a fortification in the shape of a pyramid? Other nearby watchtowers are circular or square. The pyramid form is inefficient for defense, unless it served a purpose far older than war. Archaeologists have debated this for decades. Some suggest it was a tomb, a sacred site for early rituals, or even a beacon, a structure meant to align with celestial events. Yet no human remains have ever been found within its chamber. The true function of the Pyramid of Hellinikon remains locked in stone. What truly fuels the controversy is its age. Early carbon dating of organic material found within the structure returned dates that shocked the archaeological community, some as far back as 2700 BCE. That would place the pyramid at least 200 years older than the Pyramid of Djoser in Egypt, traditionally considered the first true pyramid. If accurate, this would rewrite history entirely. But critics quickly pointed out flaws. The samples used in testing were not taken from the actual stone, but from soil deposits found inside. Later studies yielded more conservative estimates, placing the structure around 400 BCE during the classical Greek era. The dating remains debated, with different laboratories offering wildly different results. And so, the question persists: how old is this pyramid and what was it built for? If the earlier dates are to be believed, the implications are staggering. Greece would have hosted pyramid architecture long before it developed its iconic columns and pediments. The idea of pyramid building would no longer be isolated to Egypt, Mesoamerica, or Mesopotamia. It would be part of an even broader prehistoric network. Could ancient cultures have shared architectural knowledge long before written history began? Were there seafarers, traders, or shamans who carried sacred geometry across continents? These questions have kept alternative historians fascinated by the Pyramid of Hellinikon. To them, it is not an anomaly but a piece of a forgotten puzzle, a clue pointing to an ancient world more interconnected than we dare imagine. But mainstream academia remains cautious. The scarcity of artifacts, lack of inscriptions, and the pyramid's small size make it difficult to draw definitive conclusions. Without more data, most researchers place it within the Greek classical period and assign it a mundane role, perhaps a storage facility, a guardhouse, or a heroon, a shrine to a local hero. Still, the shape lingers in the mind. Why a pyramid? Why mimic a form so closely tied to other civilizations? Even if it was built in 400 BCE, the choice of design is significant. It speaks of influence, or at least curiosity. Someone at some point saw value in the pyramid form. Whether symbolic, religious, or astronomical, the decision was deliberate. The site's location adds another layer of mystery. Argolis is rich in ancient ruins, Mycenaean palaces, Cyclopean walls, and buried settlements. This land once echoed with the footsteps of kings and invaders. To find a pyramid here is to find an outlier among outliers. And yet, the region is not entirely alone. A second, smaller pyramid exists nearby, though in much worse condition. Its ruins suggest a similar design, though most of its structure has collapsed. Were these part of a larger network? Did a forgotten people once build pyramid-shaped monuments across the Peloponnese, only to be erased by time and conquest? Or was this a singular experiment, a cultural echo from an even older source? Local legends have tried to fill the gaps. Some claim the pyramid marks the grave of soldiers who fought in a great battle. Others believe it was built by Pelasgians, a mythical pre-Greek people said to have possessed divine knowledge. Though such stories lack empirical evidence, they offer a glimpse into how the structure has been perceived over the centuries, not just as stone, but as a portal to something ancient, possibly sacred. Even modern visitors report an odd feeling at the site. The way light bends around the entrance at dawn, the eerie silence of the interior chamber, the worn but purposeful geometry, all conspire to create an atmosphere of forgotten purpose. The pyramid's survival through millennia is, in itself, a statement. It has endured wars, earthquakes, weathering, and neglect. Unlike many Greek ruins that were restored or preserved, Hellinikon was left to decay. For centuries, it was hidden in plain sight, dismissed as a curiosity. Only recently has it begun attracting attention from researchers, explorers, and seekers of ancient truths. Excavations remain limited, however. Bureaucratic delays, funding challenges, and debates over the site's importance have slowed progress. As a result, much of what we believe about the pyramid remains speculative, drawn from surface surveys and distant analysis. But what if the most important clues lie buried just beneath it? Ground-penetrating radar and seismic scans could reveal hidden chambers or underground structures. But such studies are rarely prioritized in a region overflowing with more glamorous ruins. And yet, it is precisely this lack of attention that keeps the pyramid shrouded in mystery. With every passing year, erosion takes its toll. Stones shift, edges crumble, and the earth reclaims a little more. Without urgent investigation, whatever secrets the pyramid holds may vanish forever. But some believe that is exactly what certain groups want. To confirm an advanced structure predating Egypt on European soil would upset not just historical timelines, but cultural narratives long held sacred. In the absence of solid conclusions, the Pyramid of Hellinikon continues to live in the shadowlands of history, a structure too strange to ignore, yet too obscure to embrace. It sits at the intersection of mainstream doubt and alternative wonder, a crossroads where facts blur into myth. Perhaps that is its true value, not in what it tells us outright, but in the questions it forces us to ask. Why do pyramids appear in so many corners of the world? What ancient knowledge has been lost between the lines of accepted history? And what else, buried beneath fields, hills, or even the foundations of modern cities, still waits to be uncovered. For now, the pyramid endures in silence. Its stones, marked by time, stand as witnesses to a world no longer understood. Travelers who venture to the site often leave with more questions than answers. The ground beneath their feet feels charged, not with energy, but with potential, an untold story frozen in limestone. Whether built by early Greeks, foreign settlers, or a forgotten people lost to time, the Pyramid of Hellinikon offers one undeniable truth. History is not a straight line. It is a labyrinth of lost paths, each waiting to be walked again. And this lonely structure, standing firm against time and skepticism, might just mark the entrance to one of those hidden corridors. Chapter 3: The Pyramid of Cestius, Rome's Egyptian Obsession. Amid the ruins of ancient Rome, where triumphal arches, crumbling temples, and imperial forums narrate a familiar story, there stands a monument that seems to belong somewhere else entirely. Rising sharply with white marble faces, the Pyramid of Cestius looks like it was plucked from the sands of Egypt and dropped into the heart of the Roman Empire. It stands alone both in form and in spirit. No other pyramid graces Rome's ancient skyline, and yet here it is, unmistakable, unapologetic, and glaringly out of place. What drove a Roman to commission a pyramid? Why defy centuries of tradition and embrace a foreign funerary form? The answers lie in a turbulent period of cultural obsession, spiritual rivalry, and one man's ambition to outlive time itself. A pyramid in Rome was more than a tomb. It was a statement, one that would survive the fall of empires and the erosion of centuries. The man behind the pyramid was Gaius Cestius, a wealthy magistrate and member of the prestigious Septemviri Epulonum, a religious order responsible for organizing public feasts and sacrifices. Little else is known about his life, but what he left behind speaks volumes. At the time of his death, sometime around 12 BCE, Egypt was no longer an independent kingdom. It had fallen to Rome decades earlier, becoming a prized province rich in grain, gold, and ancient mystique. But Egypt had also conquered Rome in other ways. Its art, symbols, and deities began seeping into Roman culture, tempting senators and emperors alike. Cleopatra's influence lingered. Isis cults flourished in Roman cities, and the allure of Egypt's spiritual power, its obsession with the afterlife, gripped the Roman elite like a fever. Cestius, it seems, was one of its most devoted admirers. His pyramid was constructed in astonishing speed, just 330 days. That was no accident. Roman burial laws mandated strict time frames for funeral monuments, and delays could bring shame or legal trouble. The urgency, however, did not compromise the ambition. The structure stands over 36 meters tall, built from brick-faced concrete and clad in white Carrara marble. It narrows to a sharp point, more acute than Egyptian pyramids, almost blade-like against the sky. Inside, a narrow chamber once held Cestius's sarcophagus, though it has long vanished. The walls were decorated with painted frescoes, most of which have faded beyond recognition. No one knows what rites were performed here, but the very shape of the tomb was a message, an imported symbol meant to defy death and embrace the divine power of rebirth. Rome, by then, was no stranger to grandeur, but Cestius's pyramid stood apart, not only in style but in its audacity. It did not follow the Roman tradition of elaborate mausoleums or modest family tombs. It borrowed from a conquered land, yet elevated that symbolism into something personal. The pyramid form had always implied a stairway to the heavens, a path for the soul. For a Roman official to choose such a burial was to align himself not with the gods of Jupiter and Mars, but with something older, darker, and far more eternal. In doing so, Cestius joined a growing trend. Egyptian themes had become fashionable among the Roman elite. Obelisks were shipped from the Nile and erected in city squares. Sphinxes adorned gardens. Even emperors toyed with the idea of godhood in Egyptian terms. But none took the leap that Cestius did. The location of the pyramid added another layer of intrigue. It was built near the Porta San Paolo, along one of the ancient roads leading out of the city, the Via Ostiensis. At the time, this area was part of the sacred boundary where burial was permitted, but it also served as a symbolic frontier, a gateway between the living world and the realm of the dead. Travelers entering or leaving Rome would see the pyramid looming, silent and enigmatic. Was it meant to impress, to warn, or to inspire? Perhaps all three. The structure became a landmark long after Cestius's name was forgotten. When Rome fell and chaos spread across Europe, the pyramid remained. Barbarians marched past it. Crusaders rode by, but no one dared destroy it. And yet, the pyramid was almost lost. By the Middle Ages, it was buried halfway in soil, its origin forgotten. Locals believed it was the tomb of Remus, twin brother of Rome's legendary founder. Others thought it marked the grave of a forgotten emperor. Centuries passed before scholars finally identified the inscriptions on its marble face, revealing the true story. Even then, restoration was slow. It was not until the 17th century that the Pope ordered the pyramid excavated and preserved. Today, it stands intact, a rare survivor of Roman engineering and Egyptian fantasy. But its survival raises a deeper question. Why has no other pyramid like it been found in Rome? Was Cestius a singular figure, or were there others whose monuments did not endure? Some believe the Pyramid of Cestius was the tip of a cultural iceberg, evidence of a broader wave of Egyptomania that left fewer visible traces. Roman Egyptologists argue that more pyramid-like structures may have existed, built in private gardens, villas, or remote tombs, since lost to time or buried beneath modern development. Others suggest Cestius was part of a secret society, one that embraced Egyptian spiritualism not as fashion, but as philosophy. The cult of Isis, for instance, was known for its mystical rites, symbols of rebirth, and reverence for the afterlife. It is not far-fetched to think that Cestius, as a religious figure himself, was deeply influenced by such teachings, and saw the pyramid not just as a monument, but as a key. There is also the possibility that the pyramid was more than a tomb. Some researchers point to its alignment with celestial patterns. Others note its geometric precision and similarity to Nubian designs rather than Egyptian ones, suggesting a more complex origin of inspiration. Could Cestius have drawn from multiple cultures, Egyptian, Kushite, even Mesopotamian, to craft a symbol that transcended geography? In this theory, the pyramid becomes not just an architectural statement, but a fusion of sacred geometries, a beacon designed to anchor the soul to eternity. If true, it marks one of the earliest known examples of cross-cultural sacred architecture in the Roman world. Today, the Pyramid of Cestius is oddly easy to miss. It stands near a busy intersection, overshadowed by traffic and modern buildings. Few tourists realize its age or significance. Fewer still recognize its defiance. For in choosing to be buried beneath a pyramid, Gaius Cestius defied his culture, challenged religious norms, and declared allegiance to something older than Rome itself. His decision was not just about personal legacy. It was a rebellion, a quiet one, carved in stone, that still endures. Unlike the ruins of temples or the crumbling arenas of sport and war, this monument was built for the soul. It does not commemorate a battle or a law. It marks a passage. The question remains, what did Cestius see in Egypt that made him choose this path? Was it the permanence of stone, the dream of resurrection, or something deeper? An ancient promise whispered through the desert winds and carried to the shores of the Tiber? We may never know, but the pyramid remains, a silent sentinel guarding the mystery. In its stark form and quiet presence, it tells a story not of conquest, but of surrender, not to death, but to something beyond it. A belief that even in Rome, a soul could find the same eternity once promised under Egyptian skies. As we move forward in time and across continents, we begin to see a pattern. Pyramids do not belong to a single culture. They appear again and again, rising from jungles, deserts, valleys, and even polar ice. Each one different, each one the same. They are echoes of a forgotten language, spoken not with words, but with stone. The Pyramid of Cestius is one such echo, carried from the Nile to the Eternal City by a man who chose to look beyond tradition. And in doing so, he left behind a monument that continues to defy silence, a message carved in marble, a whisper from Rome's Egyptian obsession. Chapter 4: The Pyramid of Cholula, the hidden giant of Mexico. It rises not like a monument, but like a hill that pretends to be natural, covered in grass, trees, and centuries of forgetfulness. The Great Pyramid of Cholula hides in plain sight in central Mexico. At first glance, there is no sign of ancient engineering, no sleek limestone casing or precise angles hinting at artificial construction. Yet underneath that overgrown dome lies a pyramid so vast in scale that it dwarfs even the Great Pyramid of Giza by volume. It was not built overnight. Layer upon layer, culture upon culture, civilization after civilization added to it, like the steady pulse of time hardening into stone. But instead of being celebrated, it was buried not by erosion but by design. It was smothered beneath the weight of conquest, sanctified by colonial faith, and swallowed by silence. To find its true story, one must go beneath the earth, where echoes of ancient drums still throb beneath Spanish bells. Long before the Spanish ever set eyes on the Valley of Puebla, the ancient builders of Cholula were already crafting their masterpiece. The pyramid was constructed in several stages, beginning around the 3rd century BCE, likely by the Almexicalanca people, and later expanded by the Toltecs and eventually the Aztecs. With each new phase, the structure grew outward, forming layers like the rings of a tree, each layer a marker of time and belief. The pyramid's final form stood over 180 feet high, with a base 4 times the size of Giza's. Yet, instead of vertical ambition, it embraced horizontal sprawl. Unlike the skyward elegance of Egypt, Cholula's majesty was rooted, grounded, and sprawling, almost as if its creators wished to honor the earth more than the heavens. But despite its enormity, it remained cloaked, not in marble, but in adobe bricks, which over time eroded and blended into the land, becoming invisible. When Hernán Cortés and his men marched into Cholula in 1519, they were blind to what they walked upon. All they saw was a lush hill crowned by a modest church, the Iglesia de Nuestra Señora de los Remedios, built by Spanish hands atop what they believed was a simple elevation. The church became both a symbol of conquest and an accidental guardian. It sealed the pyramid beneath Christian faith, inadvertently preserving it from destruction. As blood spilled on the streets during the Cholula massacre, where thousands of indigenous people were slaughtered by the conquistadors, the pyramid watched silently beneath their feet, absorbing the weight of a new era. The irony was chilling. The invaders built their sanctuary atop one of the most sacred and ancient structures in the Americas, unaware that their altar rested on the bones of forgotten gods. What the Spanish could not see, they could not destroy. And so the pyramid survived, not as a revered ruin like Teotihuacan or Chichen Itza, but as a forgotten corpse beneath a borrowed skin. Locals told stories, whispered that the hill was not just earth, but these were dismissed as legends, folk tales meant to explain the odd mound. For centuries, the pyramid slept undisturbed, a geological phantom. It wasn't until the late 19th century that excavation began, spurred by accidental discoveries during construction projects. As tunnels were dug, walls emerged, hallways lined with ancient bricks, murals of serpent gods and celestial maps, rooms filled with relics of a lost civilization, all hidden beneath the grass. What had once been considered a hill was now exposed as a man-made marvel. Yet even then, interest remained curiously muted, as if the world wasn't ready to accept a pyramid in Mexico that outclassed Egypt's mightiest. Part of the enigma lies in the builders themselves. Who exactly began the construction remains debated. Some say it was the Olmecs, others argue for a mix of early Toltecs and local ethnic groups. No single culture can claim sole authorship. Instead, the pyramid seems to be the product of collective memory, each society adding its own belief system, each modifying the structure to suit its gods. In this way, Cholula was not just a temple, but a palimpsest of civilizations, rewritten with every era. Its interior contains murals depicting warriors, priests, and deities such as Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who was said to bring both wisdom and destruction. It was a sacred space for rituals, sacrifices, and astronomical alignments. Some chambers point directly to celestial events like solstices, hinting at a deeper connection between sky and stone. This was no mere monument. It was a living calendar, a myth encoded in mud. Despite its sacredness, the pyramid's burial was likely deliberate. Some archaeologists believe that it was intentionally entombed by the local population, possibly as a way to protect it from invaders or as a spiritual ritual to close a cosmic chapter. Covered by soil and vegetation, the pyramid disappeared from maps and memory. Over time, the church built on its summit became the new symbol of divine power. But this act of concealment preserved the structure better than any museum could. Adobe, though fragile, survives best when shielded from the elements. Ironically, the pyramid's invisibility became its shield. Centuries of conquest, colonization, and conflict passed, yet the core remained intact. This unintentional preservation gives us a raw and layered glimpse into Mesoamerican engineering and spirituality, free from the manipulation of tourism or curated restoration. Walking through the tunnels today is like descending through time itself. The deeper you go, the more ancient the structure becomes. Some chambers remain untouched, filled with the scent of damp earth and the silence of centuries. Archaeologists have uncovered over 8 kilometers of tunnels, though much remains unexplored. The pyramid's full blueprint is still unknown, as efforts to map it are complicated by the church above, which limits full-scale excavation. Tourists may stand atop the hill, marveling at the view, unaware that below them lies an empire's buried heart. It is this duality of presence and absence, memory and forgetting, that gives the Pyramid of Cholula its haunting power. It is not just a structure, but a metaphor for history itself, the parts we celebrate and the parts we bury. The Great Pyramid of Cholula challenges the very definition of visibility. Unlike other ancient wonders, it does not seek attention. It hides in silence, revealing only what is asked of it. Its massiveness is a quiet rebellion against erasure. It speaks not through grandeur but through resilience. Every brick is a whisper from a world that refused to be erased. And yet, its story remains largely untold in mainstream narratives. School books rarely mention it. Tour guides gloss over it. The pyramid exists in the shadow of better-known sites, a colossus wearing a cloak of invisibility. Its forgotten status is not due to its insignificance, but rather its overwhelming implication that there are still monuments out there that defy the timeline, that challenge the centers of historical power, and that remind us that the ancient world was far more diverse than we're taught to believe. Even now, questions linger. What undiscovered chambers lie beneath the unexplored layers? What rituals took place in the hidden altars? Were there more pyramids like this across the Americas, swallowed by forest, mountain, or city? Some fringe theories even speculate that the builders of Cholula had access to lost technologies or wisdom from pre-flood civilizations, citing the pyramid's size and complexity. While mainstream archaeology dismisses such claims, the pyramid's very existence invites speculation. It stands as a paradox, both known and unknown, documented yet unacknowledged. Its presence challenges everything we assume about pre-Columbian civilization, especially the notion that the most advanced pyramid cultures existed only in Egypt or the Middle East. Cholula rewrites that geography with every adobe brick uncovered. Its greatest irony is that its concealment may have preserved it better than fame ever could. While looters plundered open pyramids and weather-eroded exposed monuments, Cholula remained untouched. The church atop it may have been built in conquest, but in doing so, it unknowingly sealed a time capsule. Now, with modern technology, we can peel back the layers without destroying them. Ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR scans are beginning to reveal the pyramid's full dimensions, uncovering underground plazas, ceremonial staircases, and hidden passageways. But even with science on our side, the pyramid refuses to yield all its secrets. It teases revelation, but only in pieces, as if demanding reverence with every discovery. To stand atop the Pyramid of Cholula today is to straddle two worlds, one rooted in colonial conquest, the other buried in ancestral memory. The church bells ring out above, echoing across a town that bustles with life, commerce, and color. But beneath your feet lies silence, a silence that hums with the heartbeat of civilizations. The pyramid does not beg for recognition. It waits, as if knowing that eventually truth rises, no matter how deep it's buried. In a world obsessed with visibility and spectacle, Cholula teaches the value of the hidden, the buried, the remembered in secret. It reminds us that not all giants stand tall. Some lie down, letting the earth cover them until the world is ready to remember. Chapter 5. The Pyramid of Gunung Padang, Indonesia's Time Bomb. At first glance, Gunung Padang appears to be nothing more than a scenic hill cloaked in thick vegetation. Located in West Java, Indonesia, this quiet mound has long been visited for its megalithic terraces and stone arrangements. For years, it was classified as a Neolithic ritual site, impressive but nothing earth-shattering. That changed when researchers introduced ground-penetrating radar. Beneath the visible stones, they discovered layers of construction that defied conventional timelines. The deeper they probed, the stranger it became. These weren't random rock formations. They were artificial layers stacked with mathematical precision. Carbon dating from organic materials embedded in the layers yielded dates as early as 20,000 BCE. If accurate, that would make Gunung Padang the oldest known pyramid structure on Earth, predating Stonehenge, Giza, and even Göbekli Tepe. The idea alone shattered long-held beliefs. Yet, the mainstream archaeological community hesitated. Accepting Gunung Padang's true age would require rewriting the very timeline of human civilization. The structure itself is multi-layered, unlike traditional pyramids which taper upward in symmetrical precision. Gunung Padang stretches horizontally across a hill, with terraced platforms made of basalt columns, stacked and arranged with surprising intent. The visible surface sits atop what could be a series of underground chambers or older phases of construction, yet to be fully excavated. Some researchers believe each layer reflects a different era, each built upon the last across tens of thousands of years. What makes it more intriguing is the absence of complex tools or advanced machinery associated with these early dates. If a civilization was active here during the last ice age, it means humans had both architectural knowledge and organizational capability long before agriculture was even thought to have existed. Such implications ripple across the entire understanding of prehistory. Did advanced cultures rise and fall long before Mesopotamia? Gunung Padang may hold that forbidden answer just beneath its mossy surface. Indonesian geologist Danny Hilman Nadawajaja led much of the modern research, supported by a government eager to promote the site's potential. His team's findings set off alarm bells, not because they were wrong, but because they threatened the status quo. Scientific institutions around the world were not ready to embrace a 20,000-year-old pyramid. Some archaeologists accused the research team of flawed methodology or overly optimistic interpretations. Still, satellite imaging, resistivity surveys, and radiocarbon data piled up. The deeper the scans went, the clearer the underlying architecture became. Beneath the terrace lay vast cavities, straight edges, and symmetrical forms buried in volcanic soil. This wasn't natural, this was engineered. But if people built such structures so long ago, where are their tools, cities, or written records? Gunung Padang poses a paradox. Its construction suggests a high civilization, yet the archaeological trail vanishes into silence. Could everything we know about the evolution of complex society be an illusion built on gaps? As the debate intensified, Gunung Padang became a lightning rod for controversy. Supporters claimed it was the ultimate proof of a lost civilization, a smoking gun buried beneath centuries of mud and politics. Detractors called it pseudoscience, cherry-picking data to support sensational conclusions. But even the critics couldn't ignore the anomalies. The basalt stones used in construction were not randomly scattered. They were meticulously placed in patterns, forming walls and passageways. Some appeared polished or carved in deliberate shapes. Lichen growth suggested the upper layers were relatively young, perhaps a few thousand years old, but the deeper structures were untouched by modern disturbance. Each layer hinted at a different epoch. Was this site a sacred mountain repeatedly rebuilt by successive cultures? Or was it originally the crown of an Ice Age megastructure long forgotten by history? The lack of clear answers only deepened the intrigue, and that's what made Gunung Padang so dangerous. The term time bomb is not used lightly here. Gunung Padang has the potential to explode everything we think we know about early humanity. If the deepest layers were built 20,000 years ago, they predate the last glacial maximum, a time when vast ice sheets covered much of the Earth and sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. Indonesia would have been part of a much larger landmass known as Sundaland. This submerged continent could have supported civilizations now lost beneath the sea. Gunung Padang, then, might be a surviving fragment, a monument left behind by a people swept away by time and tectonics. But to accept that is to discard textbooks, redefine timelines, and reopen long-dismissed myths of sunken kingdoms like Atlantis or Lemuria. That leap is not one modern science takes easily. Yet the hill stands, and its stones remain, stubborn against denial. In the years following its rediscovery, excavation efforts have been slow and highly politicized. Some archaeologists want more peer-reviewed validation before the site gains full recognition. Others push for immediate exploration, fearing the structure may degrade before its secrets are revealed. Funding remains sporadic. Drones have captured detailed aerial surveys. LiDAR scans revealed even more geometric alignments, suggesting the terraces are not random but part of a broader sacred design, possibly connected to astronomical markers. A pyramid not only buried in earth but in forgotten knowledge. Local legends speak of an ancient power sleeping beneath the hill, a portal to the past sealed by cataclysm. Folklore meets ground radar, and the line between myth and archaeology begins to blur. If Gunung Padang is truly that old, then it is more than a pyramid. It is a survivor of global amnesia. Indonesia's volcanic landscape adds to the enigma. The region is highly unstable, prone to earthquakes and eruptions that could easily erase surface structures. That makes Gunung Padang's preservation even more miraculous. It also provides a plausible explanation for how such a site could remain hidden for so long. Volcanic flows, landslides, and dense jungle cover work together to obscure the structure. Over millennia, it blended into the natural topography. Only through technology could we peer beneath the hill's surface and uncover its unnatural symmetry. Yet each layer raises new questions. Why did the builders choose basalt, a notoriously difficult stone to work with? How did they move such heavy blocks without wheels or beasts of burden? And what kind of society had the manpower, vision, and knowledge to construct it, then vanish without a trace? Comparisons to Egypt, Peru, and Mesopotamia often fall short. Gunung Padang stands in a category of its own. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt, which rise sharply into the sky, this structure sprawls outward, merging into the land itself. Some interpret this as evidence of a different worldview, one in which sacred geometry mirrored the Earth's contours rather than defying them. Others believe it reflects survival strategy designed to endure earthquakes. Its low, broad profile makes it resilient against tremors that would crumble taller monuments. This resilience may explain why it still exists while other ancient structures have perished. Yet it also frustrates excavation. Digging deeper risks destabilizing the whole hill. Much of Gunung Padang's story remains literally buried, and perhaps intentionally so. More radical theories have emerged from the shadows. Some believe the site was once a power center, aligned with ley lines or earth energies. Others speculate it housed ancient technologies now lost, echoes of civilizations erased by catastrophe or conquest. While mainstream academia shies away from such interpretations, the presence of intentionally shaped megaliths and hidden chambers fuels fringe speculation. Every mysterious site attracts myth. But Gunung Padang's uniqueness lies in its balance of mystery and measurable anomaly. It invites questions without easy answers, presenting data that even skeptics struggle to fully dismiss. If the dates hold, if the structure proves to be man-made at the deepest levels, then our map of prehistory is not just incomplete, it is upside down. Gunung Padang forces a confrontation with our assumptions. Civilization, as we define it, may not have emerged gradually from hunter-gatherer tribes. It may have surged in waves, rising and falling in patterns we've only just begun to notice. Lost eras could have produced technologies or beliefs we now consider mythical. The pyramid may be a monument to memory, a time capsule left behind not for worship, but for warning. Like a beacon poking through the fog of time, Gunung Padang beckons us to look deeper, not just into the earth, but into the origins of ourselves. Its silence is loud, its stones deliberate, and while governments debate and academics hesitate, the jungle slowly reclaims what it once surrendered. Time ticks and the time bomb waits. One reason Gunung Padang hasn't exploded into mainstream consciousness may be its location. Indonesia, though rich in cultural heritage, has rarely been the center of ancient world narratives. Most archaeological funding flows to more famous regions: Egypt, the Middle East, Mesoamerica. Gunung Padang sits off to the side of the historical map. Yet, in its obscurity lies its strength. It was never over-excavated, never looted on the scale of Egyptian tombs. Its layers remain relatively undisturbed. That gives researchers a rare opportunity to study a possibly prehistoric structure in situ, still embedded in its original context. Every new layer, every scan, every stone moved may offer revelations not just about Indonesia, but about the roots of human civilization itself. A hill becomes a history book, written in stone and sealed in time. Perhaps the most unsettling implication is this: if Gunung Padang proves real and ancient, it might not be the only one. What if there are others, buried under jungles, submerged beneath oceans, disguised as mountains? Our world may be littered with lost civilizations waiting to be found. The question becomes not just how old Gunung Padang is, but how blind we have been. A single pyramid on a hill in West Java could be the tip of a global iceberg, an ancient world long erased by fire, flood, and forgetfulness. And Gunung Padang, sitting quietly beneath moss and mist, may be the ticking signal that wakes us from historical slumber. Not a myth, not a mistake, but a memory carved in stone, waiting to detonate. Chapter 6. The Pyramid Beneath the Ice, Antarctica's Cold Enigma. In the vast whiteness of Antarctica, where no human civilization was ever known to rise, lies a secret obscured beneath miles of ice. Among satellite images and digital terrain scans, one formation near the Ellsworth Mountains stood out. Unnaturally symmetrical, triangular, and towering. It looked too perfect to be a coincidence. Internet sleuths, conspiracy theorists, and even some open-minded researchers began whispering about the unthinkable. An ancient pyramid beneath the ice. If true, it would not only rewrite history but rip apart the very foundation of what we know about the timeline of human civilization. This was not just a geological curiosity. It was a gateway into a forgotten epoch, one that challenges the cold, accepted truths about Earth's past, and beckons us toward a frozen mystery that may never fully thaw. But if we trace the scattered pieces of evidence across science, myth, and ancient lore, a picture begins to emerge, one stranger than fiction and colder than death. For decades, scientists have drilled into Antarctica's ice sheet, extracting climate data from cores that date back hundreds of thousands of years. What they found revealed Earth's shifting temperatures and ancient atmospheric conditions. But hidden in that same ice were anomalies, warm spots, electromagnetic disturbances, and subterranean chambers detected by radar. When German researchers conducted airborne surveys in the early 2000s, strange readings came from beneath the surface near certain mountainous ridges. These regions bore no known volcanic activity, yet had geometric structures beneath them unlike anything natural. One in particular, dubbed the Antarctic Pyramid, defied classification. It resembled a four-sided pyramid with equidistant angles and corners aligned eerily with the cardinal directions. For some, this was proof. For others, it was madness. The mainstream scientific community remains skeptical, often attributing these formations to simple nunataks, mountain peaks that protrude through the ice. But nunataks are jagged, uneven, and rugged. The alleged pyramid is angular, smooth, and symmetrical. No known geological process produces four equilateral triangular faces by accident. Critics argue it's all an optical illusion, a trick of shadow and satellite resolution. But high-resolution scans and 3D modeling counter that dismissal. Still, no expedition has definitively proven the structure's artificial origin, and most official missions avoid the area altogether. Secrecy, remoteness, and funding barriers keep this pyramid locked away, as if something or someone wants it forgotten. It is the silence around it, more than the shape itself, that fuels suspicion. Legends from antiquity speak of lands lost to ice and sea. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato wrote of Atlantis, an advanced civilization that perished in a cataclysm. Indigenous stories from South America and Polynesia speak of sunken cities and a time before the current world cycle. Even old Hindu texts describe a polar civilization, Svarga, that disappeared beneath cosmic changes. Could Antarctica have once been home to such a lost world? The theory grows stronger when paired with the Earth crust displacement hypothesis, which suggests that the continents periodically shift due to imbalances in Earth's rotation. If Antarctica had once been closer to the equator, a thriving society might have existed before it was swallowed by a rapid shift in climate and tectonics. In the early 20th century, maps surfaced that shocked historians. Chief among them was the Piri-Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral using ancient source charts. It depicted the coast of Antarctica centuries before it was officially discovered, and even more alarmingly, it showed the continent without ice. Mountains, rivers, and a clear landmass were all outlined. Experts claimed this was impossible. Yet the Piri-Reis map is real, and the geography it presents matched seismic surveys of the continent's subglacial topography. If ancient mariners had indeed charted Antarctica, then they had knowledge and tools far more advanced than history admits. And perhaps, just perhaps, they had seen the pyramid when it still stood uncovered and colossal. Modern science offers no easy answers. Expeditions to Antarctica are strictly controlled under international treaties, limiting access to regions considered sensitive or strategically significant. The area where the pyramid formation lies falls within such restrictions. When private researchers attempt to gain permits, they are often denied or redirected. Meanwhile, satellite images of the site occasionally vanish or are replaced with lower-resolution copies. These digital erasures raise more questions than they answer. What is being hidden? Why the reluctance to investigate? Some suggest that governments know far more about the structure than they let on, guarding the truth to avoid social and scientific upheaval. If proven real, this pyramid would shatter timelines, religions, and the very identity of our species. Temperature anomalies around the site suggest geothermal activity beneath the ice, a potential explanation for how the structure might have survived intact. This heat, possibly from subterranean volcanic vents or artificial energy sources, may have kept the pyramid warmer and protected from crushing glacial pressure. There are also reports, though unverified, of magnetic interference in the region that disrupts instruments. Pilots who have flown near the coordinates have reported compass deviations and strange cloud formations. While none of these are proof, the pattern of anomalies builds a circumstantial case that something beneath the ice defies nature as we understand it. Whether natural or artificial, the pyramid continues to elude definitive classification, making it the most chilling riddle on the planet. The architecture of ancient pyramids often aligns with celestial bodies, Orion's belt, the solstices, or lunar cycles. The alleged Antarctic pyramid is no exception. Software simulations run by amateur researchers suggest its orientation lines up with stellar positions as they would have appeared tens of thousands of years ago. If this alignment was intentional, the builders must have possessed astronomical knowledge far surpassing what is accepted for prehistoric humans. That places the pyramid's potential origin before the last ice age, over 12,000 years ago. This coincides with the end of the Younger Dryas, a mysterious period of abrupt global cooling and extinction. Many believe this era marked the fall of an unknown civilization, one that may have built this monument as its final message to the future. The deeper mystery lies in what may be hidden within. If this pyramid contains chambers like those in Egypt or Mesoamerica, it could hold texts, relics, or even technologies left behind. But drilling into Antarctica's ice is a logistical nightmare, and doing so without disturbing fragile ecosystems adds ethical concerns. Even so, many suspect clandestine excavations have already taken place, carried out by military or private contractors under the guise of scientific research. Whistleblowers have hinted at recovered artifacts and sealed tunnels. While none of these claims are verified, the secrecy alone casts long shadows across the ice. In a land where nature rules absolutely, the presence of intelligent design should not exist. Yet something carved into the earth suggests otherwise. What civilization could have built such a monument? The mainstream narrative allows for no advanced cultures before Sumer or Egypt, but anomalies like Göbekli Tepe, Gunung Padang, and this frozen pyramid hint at an earlier chapter, a time when humanity, or something like it, thrived in a forgotten golden age. Some believe these builders were human ancestors wiped out in a cataclysm. Others think they were visitors, extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings who left markers of their influence behind. Whatever the truth, the structure beneath Antarctica mocks the arrogance of our certainty. It remains buried, not just beneath the ice, but beneath layers of denial, skepticism, and fear. There is also the haunting question of why it was buried. Was it a result of natural catastrophe, or was it hidden deliberately, concealed until a time when its message would be understood? Civilizations throughout history have buried treasures, temples, and knowledge for future generations. If this pyramid was covered intentionally, what warning or wisdom awaits those who uncover it? The Earth has been through many cycles of rise and ruin. Perhaps this pyramid is not a beginning, but a tombstone for what came before. A monument to memory, lost in ice and waiting for the right moment to return. As the glaciers recede and technology advances, that moment may be closer than we think. As the 21st century advances, the mystery only deepens. Climate change is melting Antarctica at a rate unseen in recorded history. With every passing year, more of its secrets thaw into daylight. Will the pyramid emerge whole, vindicating those who believed, or will it collapse into legend, eroded by time and politics? The truth lies in the frozen silence, where no flag flies, no city stands, and yet something ancient endures. A monument that outlasted empires, storms, and ice ages. And whether built by hands or forces unknown, it now watches us from beneath the ice, silent, symmetrical, and waiting.